Saturday, August the 12th, 1989, was a beautiful, sunny summer afternoon in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Kimberly McAndrew, a 19-year-old Dalhousie University undergrad, clocked out early from her job as a cashier at Canadian Tire at around 4:20 p.m. Kimberly left through the back door and was never seen again. Hey guys, welcome to Case 5 of Unjust Crimes. My name is Michelle, and today I will be telling you about the disappearance of Kimberly McAndrew. I just wanted to add a small disclaimer. I mean no harm or disrespect to any victim or family that I may talk about. This is simply information that I have collected online and am putting together into one video. Kimberly Ann McAndrew was born on January the 17th, 1970. Kimberly, or Kim as she was known by family and friends, grew up in a close-knit family with her parents and 5 siblings, 4 sisters and 1 brother. Kimberly was raised in rural Parisborough, Nova Scotia, Canada. Kim was described by one of her sisters as quiet and shy. Quote, "She was quiet if out in public, but around family and friends she was very funny, goofy, and liked to make others laugh, and certainly laugh a lot." Unquote. A cute petite brunette, Kim was an intelligent young lady who was a Dalhousie University undergrad. Kim had a close group of longtime friends and a long-term boyfriend who was also from Parisborough. Kim had braces, which she was really looking forward to having removed in just 3 days. Her father said that she never would have missed that appointment. According to one of her sisters, quote, "Kim had her whole life planned. She was going to be a cool mom who would drive her future children, Nicholas and Cassandra, around in a convertible." Unquote. At the time of Kim's disappearance, she was living in Halifax with 2 of her sisters in an apartment on Maxwell Avenue at the north end of Windsor Street. Kim had a summer job as a cashier at Canadian Tire on Quinpool Road. Kim had plans for the night of August 12th, 1989. It was her boyfriend's birthday. She, her boyfriend, her sister, and her sister's boyfriend were going to the Halifax Busker Festival, which is a festival that brings some of the world's best street performers to the Halifax waterfront. Performances can include fire breathers, acrobatics, comedians, and magicians. Kim's sister was to pick her up from work at 5 p.m. that day. The store had quietened down, and Kim's supervisor told her that she could punch out early. So instead of clocking out at 5, Kim clocked out at around 4:20 p.m. Witnesses say she left through the store's back door and out into the parking lot. This was the last time that Kim has ever been seen. This is one of the mysteries of this case. Where was Kim going? She knew her sister was coming to pick her up at 5. That was still another 40 minutes. Although Kim did walk home sometimes from work, it seems unlikely that that is what she would do that day. Kim's sister went to the Canadian Tire store at 5 as planned. She waited some, thinking it wasn't too unusual for Kim to be a bit late. Maybe something was holding her up a bit. But after a while, her sister began to worry. It was taking too long for Kim to come out. She got out of her car and went into the store looking around for Kim. But when she couldn't find her, she asked around for Kim, and that is when she was told that Kim had left about an hour before. Her sister knew something was wrong. She drove back to the apartment she shared with Kim, driving the route that she thought Kim would have most likely taken if she were to walk home. But she didn't see Kim anywhere. Once home, she realized Kim wasn't there either. And it didn't look like she had been there since she left for work that morning. Kim's other sister then made a decision to call home to let her parents know Kim was missing. Kim's father, who was a retired police officer, told his daughter to call the police immediately and report Kim missing. Once the Halifax Regional Police were contacted, a search for Kim started almost immediately. Flyers of Kim were made, and family and friends plastered them around the city in the hopes that someone had seen Kim or may have seen what had happened to her. Once the media got wind of Kim's disappearance, tips and sightings started to roll in. All of these tips were investigated, all of these sightings were investigated. Every stone was unturned, but still to this day, almost 32 years later, there hasn't been one single clue as to what happened to Kimberly McAndrew that fateful summer day of 1989. Police and Kim's family believe there are those in the community that do know what happened to Kim, but for whatever reason, they remain silent. But they do hope that after all this time, something will sway them to do the right thing. After all, loyalties can change over time, and this is really quite a heavy burden to carry on your shoulders for more than 30 years. It is hard to believe that knowing something about what may have happened to this beautiful young soul and her family could not take a huge toll on your conscience. When she went missing, all Kim had with her was the clothes she was wearing and a bag she took to and from work. Her bank accounts have never been touched, and all of her belongings were left at her Halifax apartment. The McAndrew family deserves to know what happened to their daughter, sister, and friend. Unfortunately, the case has spanned more than 30 years with tons of twists and turns. 2 separate inmates would give police tips on what happened to Kim. And these tips were enough to substantiate in-depth investigations, but nothing was ever unturned to show what happened to Kim. One inmate reported Kim was abducted for sex trafficking, but when her captors found out that her father was a former police officer, they murdered her. He told the police that one of these men may have groomed Kim by visiting her at the Canadian Tire store over time and convinced her to go with him the day she disappeared. According to this inmate, Kim was in the process of walking home when the man convinced her to go with him. This tip was taken very seriously. A task force was created and sex trafficking in the area was investigated very thoroughly, but nothing ever came up to connect it to Kim. In 1995, another prison inmate told police that he watched 2 of his associates murder and bury Kim in Sir Fleming Park. But at the end of the day, and lots of police hours later, in a search of the park that took several days, nothing was ever found. And this informant couldn't keep his story straight, and he also failed a lie detector test. Nothing has ever been found to substantiate this claim. Around the same time in 1995, a detective investigating Kim's disappearance consulted a psychic. Yes, I know what you are thinking, but I do mention it because it is a pretty significant part of the investigative story. Long story short, because of tips provided by this psychic, Point Pleasant Park and a couple of wells in Halifax were searched. 2 ponds were drained, but again, nothing was found. A convicted sex offender, Andrew Johnson, has long been suspected of involvement in Kim's disappearance, and we will go further into this in a little bit. But he is such a strong suspect that in the spring of 2013, an extensive search of a property in Shade Bay, Nova Scotia, was conducted.
We are following up on information that is received in relation to a major unsolved case in our community. I am able to confirm that we are in fact looking for urine remains and have brought in resources to assist us with our investigation. These resources include forensic investigators, cadaver dogs, a mini backhoe or excavator, and the medical examiner's office is still here as well.
You've been here since Thursday. We've seen backhoes go in there. We've seen medical examiners. Can you paint a picture of what it looks like back there right now?
Well, again, we're searching for evidence, and our investigators, the RCMP and Halifax Regional Police investigators, are searching for evidence, and we're going to be here for as long as it takes.
We've seen sifters and stuff like that leave here. How much longer do you expect to be here?
I'm not going to speculate on how long we're going to be here because it's a complex investigation and it's going to take some time.
We've spoken with the McAndrew family, and they said they've been contacted. What can you tell us about the connection here to them?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to provide specifics of this investigation, and it's all part of the investigation. And again, it's not.
The property belonged to Johnson's brother. Nothing was found in this search that led to an arrest, though, and Johnson has denied involvement and refused to talk to police. The good news, though, is that Johnson is incarcerated in British Columbia, Canada, indefinitely, as he has been declared a dangerous offender. So at least he is off the streets. Reports of a search of a residence of an unnamed man were released in a single article in 1998 and later reprinted in 2014 by the Chronicle Herald. And we will discuss this unnamed man in a little bit as well. But reportedly, this man was obsessed with Kim, and the search warrant application outlines reasons the suspect was pinpointed, including that, quote, he personally knew the victim, that he was in love with the victim, and stated, I think she was abducted, abused, and killed, unquote. Several items were seized in this search, but we have to assume that police either ruled this guy out or couldn't find any concrete evidence to charge him because nothing else happened. Most people believe that one of two things happened to Kim that day. She either went with someone she trusted, or she went with someone she didn't know but thought she could trust. An investigator that worked the case said he doesn't think Kim made it far from the Canadian Tire parking lot, saying, quote, whatever happened, I believe it took place in that parking lot, unquote. In the early days of the investigation, an eyewitness came forward with a possible sighting of Kim. A worker at the Gardenia flower shop at the Penhorn Mall in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, said a girl fitting Kim's description came in on August 12th and she bought a balloon and flowers. It's important to note here that this sighting has never been confirmed. Police today and Kim's family do not believe this was Kim because it was so out of her character, and especially knowing her plans for the evening. It just doesn't make sense. Nonetheless, this sighting has stuck to Kim's case all these years, and probably has wasted a lot of time in the search for Kim chasing down a false sighting. You see, the Penhorn Mall in Dartmouth is a long distance from the Canadian Tire store on Quinpool Road. According to Google Maps, it is a 17-minute drive by car, approximately 49 minutes by bus, and approximately 1 hour and 34 minutes to walk each way. Kim would have either had to have a ride, took the bus, or she would have had a very long walk. Either scenario is unlikely given Kim's personality and propensity to stick close to home and not venture off alone, especially when she knew that her sister was coming to pick her up at 5. Even if she did have a ride, it would have been very difficult to drive to the Penhorn Mall, make a purchase, and get back to the Canadian Tire on Quinpool Road before 5. And it wasn't like Kim to blow off her sister and not even let her know that she would be late, or that she was catching a ride with someone else. All scenarios of her going to the Penhorn Mall just don't make sense. Kim's family and police feel that this was a false sighting by a well-meaning Good Samaritan, but unfortunately it wasted important investigative energies that could have been better used on other tips. An investigator on Kim's case said, quote, to go this far away just wasn't Kim's style. She was not adventurous, and for her to go to Dartmouth on her own would have been an adventure, and that's just not what Kim would have done when she had plans for the evening, unquote. Another aspect that makes this scenario unlikely was that there was a flower shop on the same road as the Canadian Tire where Kim worked. So why go all the way to the Penhorn Mall in Dartmouth when there was a flower shop close by? It just doesn't sound logical. Possible, I guess, but not likely. Then, too, I think if someone did have Kim and was going to do something to her, They probably would not let her enter a public flower shop to be spotted right before she disappeared, potentially putting police on their trail. It just doesn't seem likely. Also, I kind of think someone else would have seen Kim. She was at a public mall after all. You would think that someone else would have seen her getting in or out of a vehicle or walking through the mall. Anything. But no other sightings of Kim were reported at the Penhorn Mall. At least nothing that is public knowledge that I could find, anyways. Kim's disappearance is one of those cases that just stuck with the public. An investigator summed it up by saying, quote, "I think that it could have been anyone's daughter, and that's what makes that case so bothersome to me. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She wasn't involved in criminal activity. She wasn't hanging with a bad crowd." Unquote. Kim was your average 19-year-old young lady minding her business and leading a normal life. If this could happen to Kim, then it could happen to anyone. The investigator also says, quote, "If someone would have grabbed Kim, she would have screamed her head off. Then you've got to look at it and say, what are the other ways? And trickery is something that is used a lot in abductions." Unquote. On the 30th anniversary of Kim's disappearance, Halifax Regional Police put out a plea for anyone to come forward with information, stating in a news release, quote, "We hope the passage of time will encourage them to do the right thing and share what they know with police. It's never too late to come forward, and the smallest piece of information may be just what's needed to progress the investigation into Kimberly's disappearance." Unquote. Kimberly McAndrew's case is part of the Nova Scotia's Major Unsolved Crimes program, which offers up to $150,000 for information that leads to an arrest and conviction. Kim's dad died while still trying to find answers about his missing 19-year-old daughter, Kimberly. Kim has had no contact with her family since that day, and her bank account has never been touched. Kim's sisters had stapled posters all over Halifax and took out ads in newspapers, and Kim's father worked his police contacts to pressure investigators. But still, to this day, there is not one solid clue as to what happened to Kimberly McAndrew on August the 12th, 1989. Kim simply vanished. So let's talk a little bit about 3 suspects who have been identified as persons of interest in Kim's disappearance. The first is Andrew Johnson, a convicted sex offender who is suspected of involvement in at least a dozen murders in Nova Scotia dating back to 1976. Johnson is currently incarcerated in British Columbia indefinitely, as he has been deemed a dangerous offender. The designation dangerous offender is reserved for Canada's most violent criminals and sexual predators. Crown attorneys can seek this designation during sentencing, and they must show that there is a high risk that this criminal will commit violent or sexual offenses in the future. In Canadian criminal law, a convicted person who is designated as a dangerous offender may be subjected to an indeterminate prison sentence, whether or not the crime carries a life sentence. Johnson has been investigated in connection to Kim's disappearance in Halifax and the 1992 murder of Andrea King in the Halifax area, and also the death of Stephen Michael Hall, whose body was found in the woods near Chester in 1996. During their investigation of Johnson, reportedly police found Andrea King's eyeshadow compact. Police sent several pieces of evidence for DNA testing, but the science wasn't yet sophisticated enough to give them what they needed at that time to charge Johnson. But Andrew Johnson was convicted of the kidnapping and confinement of a 20-year-old mentally disabled woman and attempting to pick up 12-year-old girls while posing as a police officer in British Columbia in 1997. At the time of Kimberly's disappearance, the telephone directory listed Johnson's girlfriend as living in an apartment in a complex across from the Canadian Tire parking lot. So, is it possible that Johnson could have tricked Kim into believing he was a police officer, and she willingly went with him? Maybe. After all, Kim's father was a retired police officer, and she probably would have trusted a police officer. That is just one possible scenario of how Johnson could have abducted Kim. But who knows how it could have went down really, if in fact he was involved. It is known that when Johnson was arrested in 1997 in British Columbia, he was attempting to lure 12-year-old girls by posing as a police officer. Johnson has a disgusting history of sexual offenses. And just to name a few, in 1992, Johnson pled guilty to confining and sexually assaulting his Halifax girlfriend. In 1997, he was caught masturbating in his car while watching little girls playing. There was a warrant for his arrest for harassing a 12-year-old girl while posing as a teen fashion representative. And the list just goes on and on. Reportedly, when Johnson was arrested in BC, police found a rape kit in the trunk of his car. The rape kit included such things as pornographic magazines, a Halloween mask, toy handcuffs, a meat cleaver, lubricating gel, and packing tape. Shortly before Johnson turned up in British Columbia, he was in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, enrolled in a sexual offender treatment program. In this program, he was required to write an essay about a sexual assault from the point of view of the victim as part of his therapy, and the account that he wrote sounded eerily like the abduction, rape, and murder of Kimberly McAndrew. An investigator on Kim's disappearance would call Johnson, quote, a person I would call a very, very strong person of interest, unquote. Going on to say, quote, if someone had identified himself to Kim as a police officer, she, being the daughter of a police officer, might have gone with him, unquote. Johnson's brother's property was searched extensively for days in the spring of 2013, when he came up as a potential person of interest in Kim's disappearance. But they could not find any conclusive evidence that Kim had been with him or on the property. Johnson has denied any connection to this case as well as any other case he is suspected in. The specific details of the search were never released, but no human remains were found. Investigators did say this on social media. Johnson's possible involvement in several unsolved cases has been raised several times in his parole applications, and luckily the parole board has denied his appeal to be released and he remains behind bars. The next person of interest in Kim's disappearance is serial killer Michael Wayne McRae. McRae is a Canadian serial killer convicted of killing 7 individuals between the years 1985 and 1998, though he claims to have killed 11 others during the same period. McRae was loose in the area around the time that Kim disappeared, though he has said he could not remember whether or not she was one of his victims. And I could not find anything of public knowledge linking McRae to Kim, but it is still very worthwhile mentioning since he was an active serial killer in the area that she vanished from. Third person who is a person of interest in Kimberly's disappearance is an unnamed man in his 30s who was reportedly obsessed with Kim. He lived in West End, Halifax, and worked in the Quinpool Road area. This guy reportedly creeped Kim and her coworkers out by taking pictures of Kim and following her home on many occasions because, quote, he wanted to feel close to her, unquote. This guy was seen speaking to Kim inside the Canadian Tire store just hours before she left to go home the day she disappeared. The Chronicle Herald, a Halifax newspaper, reported in a 1998 article, which was also later reprinted in 2014, that a search warrant was issued for the property of this unnamed man in the spring of 1997. Apparently this guy was questioned by police and admitted to knowing Kim and speaking to her the day she vanished. It was also reported that the police had, quote, reasonable grounds to believe the man, in his 30s, killed McAndrew and kept souvenirs to remember her by, unquote. Going on to report that the application outlined the reason the suspect was pinpointed, including that, quote, he personally knew the victim, that he was in love with the victim, and stated, I think she was abducted, abused, and killed, unquote. The The article reported that police found numerous photos of Kim on the walls of his home, including missing posters and enlarged photos. Also, reportedly, police seized a handwritten book dedicated to Kimberly McAndrew, 6 strips of film, 5 slides, women's makeup, a white envelope containing pictures of Kim, and a red wallet and a blue knapsack. Kim did actually have a blue knapsack with her on the last day that she was seen. Creepy? Yes, but we have to assume that police either ruled this guy out or couldn't find any concrete evidence to charge him with Kim's disappearance. Kim is officially listed as missing, but unofficially, Kim is believed to be deceased. What do you think happened to Kimberly McAndrew? Do you think it's possible Kim is still alive somewhere? Do you think it's possible Kim ended up in a sex trafficking operation? Do you think one of the identified persons of interest abducted and murdered Kim? Or do you think that someone completely unknown to the police murdered Kim? Or is it even possible someone closer to Kim abducted and murdered her? We simply don't know. If anyone does have any information on the disappearance of Kimberly McAndrew, you can call the Halifax Regional Police at 902-490-5333 and reference case number 2006-99031. You can also contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS or 8477. And please note that Crime Stoppers does provide anonymous tipping. You can also send an email to the National Center for Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains at CANADISPARUSCANDISCA@rcmp-grc.gc.ca and reference case number 2013-000007. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to hear more cases like this, please subscribe to my channel, hit the thumbs up button, and maybe if you would be so kind as to leave a nice comment down below. If you would like to suggest cases to me, you can email me at unjustcrimes@gmail.com.